On June 22, 1941, the Wehrmacht launched Operation Barbarossa with approximately 3,000 tanks and 7,000 artillery pieces across a 2,900-kilometer front. Within weeks, the Red Army's gun parks were being swallowed whole. At Minsk alone, German forces captured 1,400 guns alongside 2,500 tanks and 300,000 prisoners. By December 1941, Soviet artillery losses exceeded 24,000 tubes. Nearly three-quarters of the 33,000 pieces the Red Army had fielded at the war's start. Rifle divisions across the front reported holding 40% or less of their authorized gun strength. The crisis went deeper than numbers. Conventional artillery required precision-machined recoil mechanisms, rifled barrels, and breech blocks, work demanding specialized heavy equipment and skilled machinists. Leningrad's Kirov plant, one of the Soviet Union's most important industrial complexes, saw its output collapse after the German encirclement began on September 8th. Factories across Western Russia evacuated thousands of kilometers to the Urals, halting production for weeks. Meanwhile, Army Group Center covered over 600 kilometers toward Moscow, overrunning gun positions faster than crews could retreat with their multi-ton pieces. The 152mm ML-20 howitzer weighed over 7 tons in transport configuration. When entire armies were encircled at Vyazma, at Kiev, at Smolensk, recovery was impossible. Soviet planners needed a weapon requiring minimal precision manufacturing and maximum rapid deployment, parameters that conventional artillery violated. But that rocket systems stripped of rifling and recoil mechanisms could satisfy. If you're interested in how wars are actually decided by logistics, math, weapons, and doctrine, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Let's continue. In August 1939, engineer NKVD's team test-fired 16 132mm rockets from rails mounted sideways on a ZIS-5 truck. The asymmetric thrust nearly toppled the vehicle. 3 rockets veered 30 degrees off target. The Reactive Scientific Research Institute had been tasked with adapting aircraft RS-132 rockets for ground launch. The result could barely hit a factory complex. Viktor Nikolaevich Galkovsky proposed the fix: mount the rails longitudinally. Align thrust with the truck's axial stability. The guides could be fabricated from standardized railroad track, material already mass-produced across Soviet industry. No specialized manufacturing, a no-precision machining. The resulting BM-1316 prototype fired its full salvo without the chassis rotating off its wheelbase. The artillery branch was unimpressed. A Katyusha took up to 50 minutes to load and fire 24 rounds. A conventional howitzer fired 95 to 150 in the same time. Accuracy was laughable. By June 1941, only 40 launchers existed. Then, on June 21st, one day before the German invasion, Stalin authorized mass production. Launch rails fabricated from railroad track. Any factory that could weld steel could build one. At approximately 1400 hours on July 14, 1941, Captain Ivan Flyorov's experimental battery, 7 BM-13 launchers, NKVD operated top secret, occupied firing positions in the Rudnya Orsha area of Smolensk Oblast. The target: a German supply concentration at a railway junction, 7 launchers, 112 rockets. On under 10 seconds, 4,704 kilograms of high explosive hit the depot like a fist. Fuel trucks and ammunition stores detonated. Shrapnel cut through infantry and soft-skinned vehicles. German reports filed that evening used the word panic. The NKVD imposed absolute secrecy. Launchers carried only the marking K from the Voronezh Comintern factory. Crews didn't know the weapon's designation. Soviet troops nicknamed it from the mysterious letter, drawing on Mikhail Isakovsky's popular song Katyusha, about a girl longing for her beloved at the front. German soldiers coined their own name, Stalinorgel, Stalin's organ. A captured German corporal later offered a clinical summary. There were many cases of people becoming mad due to the Soviet rocket launcher fire. 3 months later, Flyorov's battery was encircled near Vyazma. Following protocol, the crews fired all remaining rockets, destroyed every launcher, and fought to the last. Flyorov died, preventing the weapon from reaching German intelligence. For more detailed analysis on this topic, subscribe to the channel. Now the Soviets had to build enough of them. A Katyusha could be built in a workshop that manufactured farm equipment. No precision board barrels. No hardened steel forgings. Welders cut standard railroad track into launch rails and welded them onto truck beds. While Germany's artillery required master machinists and weeks per gun, Katyusha launchers were measured in days. By December 1941, 593 launchers built, 554 in service, 8 regiments, 35 independent battalions. By December 1942, 3,237 launchers across 57 regiments, 216 batteries. Of these, 56% BM-13 units, the 23% heavy M-30 units, 21% lighter BM-8 variants. At Stalingrad that November, massed Katyusha batteries saturated German positions during Operation Uranus. In 1943, Lend-Lease Studebaker US-6 trucks became the standard platform. The redesignated BM-13N, 1,800 built on American chassis alone. Guards mortar brigades formed. Then divisions. By war's end, 518 batteries in service. Total production, approximately 10,000 launchers. Germany's answer was the Panzerwerfer 42, 10 Nebelwerfer tubes on a Maltier half-track. Total production, 296. That's it, 296 versus 10,000. Germany also fielded roughly 24,000 towed Nebelwerfer launchers, but these lacked the Katyusha's defining advantage: mobility. The towed Nebelwerfer fired from a stationary position and waited for counter-battery fire to find it, or the Katyusha fired and drove away. Germany even tried copying the design directly. The 8-centimeter Raketenwillfachwerfer was a near clone of the smaller BM-8. But German rockets left visible smoke trails that gave away launch positions. Soviet propellant produced no such trace, and despite capturing intact Katyushas, German engineers reportedly could not replicate the powder formulation. At 5 o'clock on April 16, 1945, those production numbers arrived at the gates of Berlin. 3 Soviet fronts assembled for the final offensive. 2.5 million men, 6,250 tanks, 41,600 artillery pieces and mortars, 3,255 truck-mounted Katyusha launchers, and 95,383 motor vehicles. They faced approximately 110,000 defenders of the German Ninth Army at the Silo Heights, the last natural barrier before the capital. The bombardment that morning combined Katyushas with conventional artillery, approximately 9,000 guns, and rocket launchers along an 18.5-mile front. 1 artillery piece for every 11 feet. Roughly 500,000 shells and rockets in the first 30 minutes. For comparison, the Some's opening barrage in 1916, previously the most intense in history, fired 174,000 shells over 24 hours. The Soviets delivered nearly 3 times that in half an hour. German General Heinrici had anticipated the attack and pulled troops to the second line. The barrage struck mostly empty trenches. Even so, the Silo Heights fell in 3 days. 3 weeks later, the weapon designed for open steppes entered Berlin streets. Katyusha launchers were dismantled and manhandled to rooftops to support attacks on defended buildings. Individual rockets were mounted on lengths of railroad track for close-range urban demolition. The rails aimed horizontally into apartment blocks. Every operational principle from 1941 was violated. The weapon born because the Red Army couldn't replace 24,000 lost guns fast enough, now bombarded the capital of the Reich itself. Here is the final arithmetic. A battery of 4 BM-13 launchers fired a salvo in 7 to 10 seconds that delivered 4.35 tons of high explosive across a 400,000 square meter impact zone, equivalent to 72 howitzers firing simultaneously. Then it drove away. The Soviet Union built approximately 10,000 Katyusha launchers. Germany's self-propelled answer numbered 296. The Katyusha couldn't hit a specific target. It didn't need to. It erased the grid square the target was standing in. Or after 1945, the Katyusha didn't retire. Its descendants, the BM-21 Grad, the BM-27 Uragan, the BM-30 Smerch, are still in service today. The basic concept has been copied by dozens of nations. The Katyusha saw action in Korea, Vietnam, the Yom Kippur War, the Iran-Iraq War, Syria, Yemen. It is being fired somewhere in the world as you watch this. Germany built the most precise artillery of the war. The Soviets built a truck with rails on it. They named her after a girl in a love song, and she buried the Wehrmacht. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe for more World War II deep dives every week. Thanks for watching.